Proportionality bias is our pesky tendency to believe that the cause of an event is proportional to its effect. Simply put, big events should have big causes, and small events should have small causes. Hi, I'm Graeme Newell with more of the latest brain research on what motivates us to make good and bad financial decisions. My speeches and webinars teach how to recognize the signs that an impulsive decision might be likely. Click subscribe and the bell below to see more videos. Proportionality bias pops up most often when big things go wrong. So when a wildly popular president was killed, it just didn't seem right that an insignificant weirdo could be responsible. And 50 years of crazy conspiracy theories were born. Yet when John Hinckley shot President Reagan, this time the world believed the lone gunman theory. Why was this time different? Because we got a happy ending. Reagan recovered fully. Being able to determine causality gave our caveman ancestors a huge evolutionary advantage. That's why our very flawed brains tend to see links when they're not there. There are three situations when proportionality bias tends to show up the most. First, when big things happen and we feel powerless. This could be a major illness. We start thinking it was caused by just about everything we ever put in our bodies. But we all hit the cognitive bias jackpot with the pandemic. Proportionality bias assures that an avalanche of conspiracy theories have stayed with us from the beginning. It was a Chinese attempt to destroy the West. It was Bill Gates plotting to implant us with microchips. Or COVID was actually 5G phone signals attacking our brains. The scope of the destruction and the mundane cause just didn't match up. It wasn't right that so much death and suffering should have come from a little virus you couldn't even see. The second situation when we're most vulnerable to proportionality bias is when our self-image gets challenged. When the boss says no to our big new proposal, our brain tends to go all conspiracy theory on us. We start looking for big nefarious reasons we lost out. But it could have been that the boss simply was in a bad mood that day when he made the decision. Our brains just can't accept that something so important to us was decided on a triviality. And number three, when we make a big mistake. It's too painful to admit we might be at fault, so our ego desperately looks for bigger, more conspiratorial causes. Maybe we messed up on that big important project at work. Instead of blaming ourselves, it's much easier to suspect a coworker sabotaged us. If you really want to see proportionality bias in action, check out the world of finance. Lose a boatload in the market? Maybe it was those high-frequency traders rigged the game. But ladies and gentlemen, the award for the most egregious proportionality bias offender goes to the financial news services. When big moves happen, journalists jump through some pretty impressive hoops to find a big cause. But maybe the markets move because an analyst missed his train that day. Thousands of people lost millions of dollars, and it just doesn't seem right that something that trivial caused it. Financial pundits are never going to throw up their hands and say, "I'm completely stumped on why this happened." The key to fighting proportionality bias is to keep your imagination in check. Finding causality helps us learn and make important changes. But when fate rolls the dice and we come up a loser, it's important we give randomness its due. When we learn to be okay with never knowing why, we can avoid blaming others and ourselves. So we've been talking about how cognitive bias skews our reaction to bad news, but what about good news? If you'd like to hear the fascinating story of how our opinions distort when we get around winners, just click on the info box right here. So remember, after a big loss, it's important to check your thinking. Remind yourself that this is the time you're most vulnerable to building your own very personal crazy conspiracy theory. Right now, I'm working on another video about how cognitive bias lures us to make bad financial choices. If you'd like to be alerted when that video is completed, just click on my face below and subscribe. And be sure to click that bell as well. I've created tons more videos of how brain science can help you make smarter money choices. Click on this box to see the full list. I'm Graeme Newell, and that's Better Decisions Through Brain Science.